Welcome to the Doom Scroll News Report here on Radio Taiwan International, where I, Hannah Belinsky, and my co-host,
Amanda Stevens,
two writers political by necessity, cover some of the biggest international news stories dominating our news feeds from the last week. I'm Hannah Belinsky, and this week we're going over the latest updates on the war in Ukraine, the seemingly never-ending escandalo surrounding former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, and finally, a bit about free birthing, a dangerous trend promoting pregnancy without any prenatal care and birth without any medical assistance. It's a lot of topics that are not for the squeamish today. Would you describe yourself as such, Amanda? Squeamish, that is.
Topically so.
Topically?
Topically so. Yeah, like in general, no, not really.
That's good.
But
That's
there
a good
are
thing.
a couple of things that do get me like immediately. It usually is like spiders. I'm arachnophobic. Very
Really?
arachnophobic. Yeah. So even really cheap looking spiders and like movies
Like a little
and stuff like that.
toy thing.
If I see it out of the corner of my eye, it'll get me for sure.
I had
Or
no
the longer
idea.
that I have to watch like even a fake spider on screen, the more it upsets me.
Well, that's
It needs
there's
to be
an
very small.
evolutionary purpose for arachnophobia.
Sort
So
of. Well, if you live in Taiwan, for sure. There's some big old
Yes.
spiders over here in the tropics. I don't like
it's
that.
true.
So, like, skittering things make me squeamish. In terms of, like, what we're talking about today, a little bit with the free birthing, but it's mostly because I also just sort of really dislike the idea of pregnancy as
It's-
it could apply to my own
It's
body.
a scary thing to go through. It really is. But before we get to that, let's bring it back to Ukraine. Since it's been a minute, and there have been some fairly significant developments in the past several days, namely that a revised version of a U.S.-backed peace plan is now under consideration after being rejected a few times. The revision has been trimmed down to 19 points from a 28-point proposal before, which controversially included Moscow keeping captured Ukrainian territory and was therefore criticized by European leaders as a capitulation to Russian demands. Officials, including European officials this time, quickly met up in Geneva, Switzerland to rewrite the proposal so that it preserves Ukrainian sovereignty, as it should have all along, if you ask me.
Yeah, can you imagine?
But Putin, of course, is not biting, and in fact is only doubling down on his demands for territory, saying Russia will lay down arms only if Kyiv's troops withdraw from Crimea and the parts of the eastern Donbass region that they now hold.
Some that they don't even hold or they haven't captured yet, but they're like contested.
And at the same time that they're trying to make these diplomatic moves, Russia has only intensified their assault, launching aerial and drone strikes that have caused multiple civilian casualties. This is, of course, very much a developing story, and in many ways it doesn't actually feel like it's developing at all. It feels like much of the same, really. It's like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. So I think the most pressing question now is the Trump administration's choice to go into negotiations without involving the EU from the start, and with a plan that was overly friendly to Russian demands. What kind of signal does that send everybody? And what kind of consequences are we looking at down the line?
The BBC article at the very end had a quote from European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, who accused Russia of holding a post-World War II mindset and saw that the European continent was a sphere of influence which could be carved up for larger countries. So to me, that's definitely what it feels like going into these negotiations. And I feel like that's what we keep coming back to when we talk about like Trump and his mindset as like being the president of the United States. I think that is true of Putin as being the head of Russia. I think that's a signal it sends. I think she's very on the money with that in Europe as saying like, we see you, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I see what you're doing. In terms of consequences, I was also listening to the New York Times podcast, The Daily, talk about this and kind of going into a little bit more detail about the background before this. I think it's notable that like this came at a time when, as they pointed out at the New York Times, the president isn't strongest because there's a corruption investigation into one of the cabinet members, like one of his high-level cabinet members.
Right.
I think we can see trying to end the war, but still like we've always said, with both the Israel-Palestine conflict and the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we have two leaders whose personal identity and ego is wrapped up in this.
Yeah, they have everything on the line, pretty much.
Right. And so I don't think that they can accept no
I don't
for
think
an answer.
so.
They're not willing to. And so all that BBC article also mentioned, like, somebody, the U.S. or Russia was like, oh, there's just a few talking points left. It was the United States. It was the United States said, oh, well, there's just a few talking points left. And we know what the talking points are. There's 3 of them. They want Ukraine. They want Ukraine to not join NATO, and they want Ukraine to have no military. The only way that I think Russia would willingly lose or concede this war would be in such a way that they can then just continue aggression later down the line when everyone's sort of relaxed.
Right.
Which is why the concessions they're not going to budge on are the concessions that Ukraine is also not going to budge on, because they know that.
Yeah.
This already happened with Crimea in 2014.
Yeah, they're not going to stop, are they?
No, I don't think so. So
it seems like Trump wants to wrap this up as quickly as possible. And that is not going to happen. You know, it is not that simple. It never was, and it never will be. But he really wants to wash his hands of this. And I mean, it goes back to him saying he was going to be the peacetime president or whatever, and that the war would be over in no time once he's in office. Like, hello. It's a dream, really. He's just dreaming.
Meanwhile, he's closing airspace in Venezuela.
Yeah. How about that? That's a little bit strange.
But I mean, I guess I would close by saying, I do think that there is like a growing appetite to end the war for everybody.
Yeah.
That being like, most people didn't want the war to begin with, obviously.
Nobody wants war.
Obviously, nobody wanted it. This was an unprovoked invasion. If that's just what it was, full stop, bar none. But now we're approaching almost 4 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
That's really long. That's getting to be like as long as a world war.
It is.
It's a protracted, very long-term war. Nobody is gaining ground fast.
Not
even
really,
with Russia
no.
having theoretically a numerical advantage. It's very slow. It's very painful for both sides.
Yes.
So I see that both sides would want to end the war, and I also can see that like Ukraine is willing to come to a negotiation. What they said was, we cannot reward Russia for their aggression.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that that's true. I think that's just a ground zero starting point, is you can't be rewarded for just apropos
being
of nothing.
The aggressor. Yeah.
Invading another country and ruining a peacetime.
And having imperialistic objectives.
That's not something that we as a world can reward anymore.
I agree. You mentioned Venezuela ever so briefly. Let's bring it over to South America. Last time I hosted, we talked about Argentina. I want to return to the continent this week to talk Bolsonaro.
Another escandalo.
Oh, yes, a bit about the whole Bolsonaro arc, but focusing in particular on the most recent developments in his criminal trial, which has gone on for the better part of the year now. I feel like over the past several years, every context in which I have seen Bolsonaro's name mentioned has been bad.
He's not a good person.
Yeah, it starts from being chummy with United States President Donald Trump, and then to repeatedly contracting COVID and being hospitalized for it, much to the schadenfreude of his political opponents. And finally, for attempting to overthrow the government. The short version is, back in 2018, he was elected president running on a far-right populist platform. Pretty much right away, he got himself embroiled in controversy for basically ignoring environmental protections and mishandling the 2019 Amazon wildfires. Then, he bungled the COVID pandemic, downplaying the virus and resisting masks and lockdowns.
Catastrophic.
After losing the 2022 election, for not doing a very good job, he didn't want to accept defeat and planned to orchestrate a coup. That didn't go over very well for him, thankfully, and in September of this year, he was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 27 years and 3 months in prison for attempting to undermine democracy. He started serving his sentence just last month, and although he's been up to some strange shenanigans regarding his ankle bracelet, he's very much still serving that sentence. Ultimately, I think it's a heartening story. Brazil's democratic institutions successfully prosecuted, convicted, and incarcerated a guy who was asking for it. And it seems they're not letting him serve it under house arrest either, even though he's trying so hard not to go to prison. Oh, please don't send me to prison. Does it feel like a success story to you, Amanda? A win for democracy at a time when authoritarian powers seem stronger than ever?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit of a setup, isn't it?
It is. Although here's what I would say, because the news cycle is really crazy. It's hard to keep up with stuff. I think a lot of people kind of remember Bolsonaro in the back of their mind, and like you, I think your summary was really good. But I wanted to remember like what happened during the coup, and I remember reading about it, and I remember feeling it was eerily similar. So if you'd permit me, I would love to just read a summary of the events of that attempted coup.
Go for it.
This is listed as the January 8th Brasilia attacks, which was that on January 8th, 2023, following the defeat of then President Jair Bolsonaro in the 2022 general election and the inauguration of his successor, a mob of Bolsonaro supporters attacked Brazil's federal government buildings in the capital, Brasilia. The mob invaded and caused deliberate damage to the Supreme Federal Court, the National Congress Palace, and the Planalto Presidencial Palace, seeking to violently overthrow the democratically elected president who had been inaugurated on January 1st. Many rioters said their purpose was to spur military leaders to launch a military intervention, which was a misinterpretation of the Brazilian constitution and a euphemism for a coup, and disrupt the democratic transition of power. At the same time, like, it wasn't limited just to this. People believe that they also knocked down power towers in several of the Bolsonaro strongholds in the country. Wow. Because the day after this, when you're thinking of like those giant towers that have like the 8 wires coming off of them that go across the big areas, the big pylons. 3 of them went down, including one of them that connects the largest dam in the country to the rest of the country.
Oh, dear. And
there were no natural disasters or anything else that could have caused them to go down. And one of them was like purposefully damaged by a tractor.
Wow.
Luckily, they were able to switch up power, so nobody like lost power, but that also happened the day afterwards. So a lot of people compared this.
I was about to say, it sounds familiar.
Doesn't it sound familiar to you?
Yeah.
So this happened in 2022. So there is, I think, precedent and room to interpret this as a copy-paste of
January 6th.
And I'm not the only one who did that. Like, there were newspapers in Brazil who also compared it to that. And then there were other ones that just called it like a coup. Called it what it was. The effects ended up being a lot of the same, where like military officers or police officers whose job it is to protect these buildings got hurt and hospitalized. A lot of people were arrested en masse. They have since been sentenced. And also there was an ongoing investigation, as like it really feels like he did want this to happen. He was egging these people on.
Totally. Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So it does feel like justice, and I do feel like it is heartening, because also the day after this happened, on January 9th, when those power disruptions happened, like many, many more Brazilians came out and were like, don't do this. Like, we do not want this.
I think my feelings about Bolsonaro in general are pretty clear based on the way I presented this information. But of course, I'm still interested to hear your thoughts on him and his rise and fall, as it were.
Yeah. You mentioned his son was really broken up about the fact that his dad was going to jail.
Oh, of course. I think he tried to give him social media access, and then he got in trouble for that.
Yeah. Well, they also, the interesting thing about it is, like, he's still trying to get back into politics. He wants to run for president again, even though he's barred from holding office. At the same time, another thing that I think has affected his popularity is that he has run as Trump, as a lot of these people do, as like a strong man.
Yeah,
But his defense for messing with his ankle monitor while he was in house arrest is that his prescription drugs made him like hallucinate.
Right.
And
That's
so,
not very strong man of you.
No. So a lot of people, like some people are like, well, he's not politically weak. He's just old and his health is bad.
I was about to say he's 70.
But a lot of other people are like, he's like what you said, he's 70.
Yeah. He's going to be like almost 100 by the time he finishes serving. If he serves the complete sentence, he will be almost 100. It's not happening, dude. You got to let go.
I do think that in times like these, while it does feel like justice, I don't feel like it's something that's like, well, and that's done, and it's never going to come up again, and we should just totally forget about it. It's never going to pop up again. I think, unfortunately, this is like one of those cases where it's like you do need to keep an eye on it, because not just Bolsonaro, but Bolsonaro's family is also trying to like work their way into being influential players for the next upcoming election, to have influence over who a challenger would be. And of course, obviously, then to have influence in an upcoming, hopefully more friendly to them.
Right. A person can no longer run or die or whatever, but their ideology can certainly live on.
Right. It's something that we usually say as a comforting thing, but it's something that, it's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Like, you can't kill ideas.
Definitely. Before we wrap up for the day, let's talk a little bit about free birthing, more specifically the enterprise known as the Free Birth Society. This is all from investigative reporting by Sirin, Kale, and Lucy Osborne at The Guardian.
God
and I'm
bless 'em.
glad they wrote this up because this is something I have seen finding appeal, particularly among the so-called trad wives we mentioned last
Word of the year.
episode, who idealize traditional gender roles, but also among some more left-leaning, crunchy, and hippie moms as well.
Yeah.
Women across the political and ideological spectrum who have developed what I think is a very understandable distrust in the American healthcare system.
Well documented even.
Yes, they have found themselves attracted to the notion of a non-medicalized or wild birth. That means no prenatal checkups, no doctors, no midwives even, just you being pregnant, then giving birth.
Even to the point of like no doulas, which I bring up as like everything that you would think as like, oh, this is a medical alternative. No,
girl, this
you
is free
and two
birth.
of your friends from the same club you're at.
Right. So more or less by yourself. No healthcare professionals involved. Now, I'm not going to talk about my birth experience because I think I've talked about it enough on the program, and I even reflected on it at length in my own program early last month, around the time of my son's first birthday.
Yay.
But I do want to reiterate that as commonplace as it is, pregnancy and giving birth is technically one of the most risky, ordinary things you can do. Ordinary in the sense that a lot of women willingly undertake it, even though, it can seriously injure or kill you.
And it's a natural process of life. So
Right.
in that way, ordinary as well. Not
Right.
Not safe.
It's considered normal. So there seems to be something paradoxical about these women basically choosing to go it on their own, despite how much riskier that makes an already risky endeavor. But if you think about it, some really horrible things can happen as a direct result of overly medicalizing your pregnancy and birth. Unnecessary procedures, injuries, abuse. If the process itself doesn't traumatize you, the way your healthcare providers treat you or fail to treat you can. But that's not what these Free Birth Society influencers/podcasters really care about. They just wanted to leverage this fear, this very well-founded fear of being subjected to undue medical intervention or abusive treatment to make millions of dollars. I think it was over $13 million.
13 million since 2016, I think they said. A year since 2016.
Right. So to make all this money and take exactly zero responsibility when things inevitably went horribly, sometimes fatally wrong for some of them. And it takes advantage, too, of guilt, which is a really powerful force in pregnancy and parenthood. So when something doesn't go to plan during labor and delivery, it's very natural for a woman to feel like it's her fault or that she has failed in some way, either biologically or by making the wrong choices. And I think these Free Birth Society vipers honed in on that fear and they capitalized off it. So, Amanda, I know that while you personally are child-free, you have a vested interest in women's rights, reproductive rights, the right to choose. And technically, these women are exercising their right to choose how they want their pregnancy and birth to go. So how can we balance a pregnant woman's right to bodily autonomy with the need to ensure the safety of mom and baby? Like, where do we draw the line?
I think we draw the line at informed consent. In a lot of these stories, one of the biggest things that can help people is to fully inform them of everything that can happen and what to do in that scenario. And it is your right to choose if you don't want to have any medical care. And I think for a lot of people that could be like a viable option. But what you need to know is that it is really dangerous and you need to know emergency signs to look for. And in those cases, I would still suggest that you have perhaps not like a licensed doctor, but somebody else who has more of a traditional sense, like a doula or a midwife, where They may not give you medication, but at least they can advocate for you, or they know what to look for so you can focus on giving birth.
You need a backup plan.
You do.
Know?
And I think you really do, because it is dangerous.
But these Free Birth Society people, they operated on this idea that there's only one correct way to do free birth, and that means you have to be all in. You do it all by yourself. You don't have any kind of backup plan. None of that stuff.
But it also operates on like a systemic misinformation that your body will never do anything that can hurt you.
Yeah.
In the very first story, they talk about this extremely tragic case that I won't get too into, but founded on the idea that they told this woman, your body would never grow a baby. You can't birth.
That is simply not
It's not true. And something that rocked my world this year was learning that the baby boom was not due to horny people. It was due to the fact that medical advancements that we have today made birth 90% safer for women. So people were suddenly surviving birth.
And babies, too.
And babies. People and babies. And I guess they're all people, right? But I mean, like mothers and babies, really. And so that doesn't mean that you have to go into, especially in the American healthcare system, it's also predatory. It is.
They want to get it done. They really don't care so much about you. I even got a sense of this here in Taiwan, where the episiotomy rate is very, 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 very high.
Right.
I had to tell my doctor, no, I don't want this. Like, I had to make sure he knew.
And the thing is, like, I just think that's where, like, it is so, so important. Like, you do have the right to choose, but we need to prioritize giving accurate information to people. And that's also what's hard, because, like, of course, the number one, that you can back this up, I'm sure, like, there's so much information out there, and everybody is giving you their own unwarranted, unprompted advice. And so, like, you're never going to feel like you have all the information.
Right. It's still down to you.
Yeah.
So you got to gather all that information, and then you got to make the choice. Nobody can make it for you.
So I think the line, like, for me, the line comes that, did you have, like, fully informed consent?
Yeah.
And then at that point, it's up to you. Then this is for you. I still don't think that you necessarily have the right to, like, impose in somebody else's journey.
No, I don't think so.
But also,
either.
I don't think these people would be making the same decisions if they had all of the information.
No.
Most of them. I don't think most of these people would be doing the same. And, like, again, the first story they tell, she didn't have informed consent.
No.
And she didn't have anybody there to help her. And she clearly, in that moment, wanted and needed that.
Yes. And she didn't get it.
No.
So, free birthing, don't do it.
No.
Well, that's it for today's news report. A quick reminder, you can find all of our referenced articles in the show notes for today's episode. I'm Hannah Belinsky.
I'm Amanda Stevens.
Thanks for joining us on air today. Tune in tomorrow for more programs by Radio Taiwan International. And in the meantime, remember to stop scrolling and touch grass. We'll see you next week.
Bye.